What's up, guys? I'm Daily Reveille sports columnist Micah Bedard. This is a video version of Mic'd Up. I wrote a column about the NCAA and Mark Emmert and just how much of a colossal mess that the National Collegiate Athletic Association has become. What am I talking about? If you haven't read the news, University of Miami, big scandal there with former booster Nevin Shapiro and his contributions, strip club visits, cash, it got that intense over in Coral Gables. But just the amount of stuff that the NCAA had at their disposal, but it wasn't enough. In January, while the investigation into Shapiro in Miami was underway, they paid Nevin Shapiro's lawyer $19,000 to get additional information that they didn't need. But since that, they didn't get to interview two key witnesses in the case and had to give up at least 20% of the evidence against Shapiro. Should have been an open and shut case. The NCAA now has made it more muddled than it should be. But that wasn't the worst part of the case. The worst part was the Vice President of Enforcement, Julie Roach, was fired by Mark Emmert. Why? Because her plan to use her subpoena power from Shapiro's lawyer didn't work out. Did Mark Emmert have knowledge of this, or did it happen? We'll never know. But that's the thing that the NCAA has been terrible about. Double standards. Mark Emmert is able to get away with everything because he's at the top of the totem pole. However, in October, the NCAA established a new legislation that held coaches liable for what their assistants do. Guys like at North Carolina, like Butch Davis, and Penn State's Joe Paterno, their programs were punished, not necessarily themselves. Butch Davis was fired. Joe Paterno, of course, passed away, but their programs were punished after that because of the actions of their coaches. Why isn't the NCAA punished for that? Interesting question when you consider what Mark Emmert has done. Because he's at the top of the totem pole, he thinks he's untouchable. As I pointed out in my column, let's look at two not identical situations, but when it comes to receiving improper benefits, it goes hand in hand. Texas guard Mike Kabongo was suspended 23 games for receiving airfare for a training session in October from former Longhorn Tristan Thompson. $476 was the total amount that Thompson gave to Kabongo, whose Kabongo's brother reimbursed him, I think a week after it had happened. What was his penalty? 23 games. He played his first game last week. Texas at that point was 10-13, had no chance of going to the NCAA tournament. Kabongo was by far their best player. You take him out of that. Shabazz Muhammad, $1,600. He doesn't get anything. He sat out the first 3 games because the NCAA, of course, was taking forever to decide on a statement. But he plays the whole year. UCLA's 19-7, and they're probably going to go to the big dance. Is it fair? No, because it's a case-by-case basis. And I wrote a column about this last year too, the egregious transfer rules, the fact that coaches who are allowed to take jobs and leave jobs whenever they please don't get penalized. But a player, if a coach recruits you for 3 years and you go to his school and after your freshman season or your sophomore season he leaves, you're in the dark. You have to either play there for a new coach or you have to go somewhere and sit out if you're going to go to a Division I program. Coaches don't have that. And the thing with the transfer restrictions is, whether it's not having to sit out a year, getting a 6 year of eligibility, like I said, it's a case-by-case basis. Trey Ziegler, a guard at Pittsburgh, he went to Central Michigan where his father was the coach. His father got fired. The NCAA allowed him to transfer to Pittsburgh without having to sit out a year because his father got fired. They said that was an extenuating circumstance, while other guys aren't allowed to sit out a year for ailing mothers and fathers and sickness. It's a case-by-case basis, and it's not consistent, and that's not fair to athletes. But the main gist of my column was that ever since Emmert has taken over in 2010, the NCAA has been a laughingstock of the colleges that they're under. Starting with the Cam Newton situation and all the way to Miami and even more stuff that's happening on a daily basis. The NCAA, they don't have the manpower, they don't have the enforcement power that they once did because a guy like Mark Emmert is running it and he has people below him that when he fires, he just moves people back up. He's not hiring people from the outside. The NCAA is never going to be changed if, like my man Jay Billis says, Emmert has to resign. And even when that happens, we don't know how far that's going to go. Big thanks to Jay Billis, who definitely tweeted out my column because he agrees with me, because the NCAA has major problems, and if you don't think college sports is in trouble, you need to look up a couple of these cases and just see how wrong that the NCAA has been on some of this stuff. So Mark Emmert, get your stuff together or there's the door. I'll be back next week, guys. I gotta go to work.